Hi, it's Katrina.
Number 10. Underwater aliens. Have you ever wondered what mysteries lie under the surface of the ocean? It's kind of scary. In Puerto Rico, a group of fishermen recently documented their encounter with a USO. A USO is like a UFO, only it's an unidentified, submerged object. The fishermen were just off the coast of Aguadilla in Puerto Rico when just feet away from their boat, a spectral blue light suddenly beamed up from below. A single patch of glowing blue water appeared out of nowhere. One of the fishermen pulled out their phone to record the bizarre phenomenon, and near the end of the encounter, something strange appeared only briefly in the illuminated patch of sea. For just a second, a humanoid shadow appeared in the lit-up water, looking like something out of a horror movie. This couldn't possibly have been a fish. For a fragment of a second, a creature that looked suspiciously like a miniature human with a fishtail was seen by the fishermen, and its shadow was obvious thanks to the blue glow. It seemed to have long skeletal arms and a round human head. It looked like a freakish mermaid, or maybe an underwater alien. Nobody really knows what happened. The bioluminescence of the sea suddenly vanished, and the mysterious creature never reappeared. Could this video be proof that real monsters lurk in the seas? Or do you think this was nothing more than a hoax or a trick of the eyes? Let me know in the comments below. Number 9. The Golden Orb. In 2023, a group of deep-sea explorers found something extremely unusual at the bottom of the ocean. They came across a gold orb that was situated about 2 miles deep in the Gulf of Alaska. According to the team from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, the gold orb was flesh-like. It also had a hole in it, which appeared to have been made by a creature either burrowing into the artifact or trying to break out of it. Scientists were so perplexed that they gently suctioned it out of the ocean for examination. They brought it 2 miles to the surface, then preserved the bizarre biological orb in ethanol. Scientists still don't know what the golden orb is. They know it's biological, but not where it came from. Some of the team thinks it could be an egg, while others believe it's a mysterious type of sea sponge. If the gold orb is an egg, it's not like any egg that's ever been seen by scientists. The discovery was made in late 2023, and researchers are still struggling to solve the mystery. Number 8. The Mariana Virus. Scientists in China have found something unexpected at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. At an astounding depth of 29,199 feet, researchers identified a new virus. And according to Min Wang from the Ocean University in China, it might be the deepest virus in the world. It was located at over 2/3 of the way to the lowest point in the Pacific Ocean. Researchers say the virus is a bacteriophage. It's a kind of tiny life form which infects bacteria, then hijacks their cellular machinery. The bacteriophage then generates additional copies of itself, spreading as a virus. What might come as an even bigger shock is the fact that plenty of viruses are found throughout the deepest regions of the ocean. Both bacteria and viruses live in the extreme depths of the hadal zone, a part of the ocean where no light can reach. However, scientists don't know much about them. There are a lot of unanswered questions about deep-sea viruses. They are so alien to humans from the surface that the human immune system doesn't even register that they exist. They aren't dangerous in any way to people, but must play an important part in the marine ecosystem. These viruses have been found on the floor of Antarctica's ocean. They've also been dug out of hydrothermal vents in the deep sea, yet scientists still don't really know what they do. Number 7. Volcano Creatures. Scientists with the museum's Victoria Research Institute recently went on a month-long expedition to the Cocos Islands Marine Park, located off the coast of Australia. Their plan was to map the seafloor as they traveled a total of 6,800 miles. But as they went about their scheduled activities, they made some rather disturbing discoveries. The team came across deep-sea volcanoes in the Indian Ocean and the unusual creatures who call the volcanoes home. One particularly odd creature the scientists encountered was a creepy blind eel with gelatinous skin. The creature gives birth to live young rather than eggs, which is unusual. They also found a pelican eel with velvety black skin and a luminous organ on its tail, which it uses to lure prey. Another creature they encountered was a high-fin lizardfish, which happens to be a hermaphrodite height. The fish has male and female reproductive tissue, allowing it to perform whichever role is necessary to make babies. One of the specimens the researchers physically collected was a tribute spiderfish. It's a weird critter with stilt-like legs that hunts small prawns. Other strange creatures that were spotted during the expedition include the slender snipe eel, which can grow over 30 feet long, yet only weighs 1.8 ounces, a pancake sea urchin covered in poison spines, and Sloane's viperfish with its huge vampire-like teeth. Dr. Tim O'Hara, the chief scientist on the expedition, said many of the more unusual creatures could be new species. Number 6. World War II Human Remains. In May of 1943, a U.S. bomber crashed near the island of Malta in the Mediterranean Sea. According to military records, the B-24 Liberator suffered engine trouble and was hit by anti-aircraft fire. The aircraft was part of a bombing raid in southern Italy, and after the bomber took damage, it tried to reach Malta to make an emergency landing. But as it approached, the vehicle lost power. The bomber then crashed into the surface of the water, but amazingly, everyone survived. At least, they survived the initial crash. Sergeant Irving R. Newman, who was just 22 years old at the time, was gravely injured. The other crew members tried to rescue him, but the bomber was rapidly sinking. The other survivors could do nothing as the aircraft sank to the bottom of the sea, taking Newman with it. 9 men survived, but Newman was dragged to a watery grave. In 2018, divers uncovered the haunting wreckage of the B-24 bomber. They found it situated about a mile off the southernmost point of Malta, 190 feet beneath the surface. A few divers went to check out the wreckage, and that's when the most horrific discovery of all was made. Timmy Gambin and his team of maritime archaeologists from the University of Malta uncovered U.S. Sergeant Irving Newman's body. Newman was a gunner on the bomber. Recovering his remains was extremely challenging because of how unstable the wreckage was. But after 2 months of hard work, the team managed to recover his body. Newman's family is finally getting closure, even if it's been 80 years. The fish with human teeth. A diver in the depths of Chesapeake Bay caught an incredibly weird fish with a mouthful of human teeth. Todd Elder was spearfishing in 2023 when he saw a massive creature moving in the water in front of him. Intrigued, Todd began swimming after the fish with his spear, ready to take the shot. After he speared the creature and pulled it out of the water, he couldn't believe what he was looking at. The fish was described as dinosaur-sized, but it wasn't the size of the fish that caught Todd off guard. It was the fish's toothy smile. The creature had perfectly straight, square teeth in its mouth. It didn't even need Invisalign. While the teeth looked eerily human, the rest of the fish's mouth was very much not human. It had a top row of teeth and a bottom row of teeth, then 3 additional layers of teeth moving down into its throat. It looked like the top and bottom of its mouth were paved in blocks of human teeth. The creature is called a sheep's head fish, and in reality, it's not at all unusual. It uses its human-like teeth to crunch cockles, crabs, and oysters. But the fish Todd speared proved to be a world record for the biggest sheep's head ever caught at 17.4 pounds. That's 2.4 pounds heavier than the previous biggest sheep's head that was caught in 2015. Number 4. Slow motion Chernobyl. In the frigid waters of northern Russia, there's a potential disaster looming. Experts have described the region as a slow-motion Chernobyl. There are thousands of tons of nuclear waste stored inside sunken nuclear submarines. And as the nuclear submarines decay, they get closer to unleashing a biological nightmare into the ocean. Waste from the submarines could poison the water with more than 6.5 times more radioactive poison than what was emitted at Hiroshima. The nuclear debris is scattered along the shoreline of northern Russia in the waters of the Barents and Kara Seas. Experts estimate that there are over 17,000 objects, including 3 nuclear subs and 18 nuclear reactors. Many of these pieces of nuclear trash sit at a shallow depth of only 98 feet. The reactors are full of uranium, which experts say will certainly start leaking radioactive material into the ocean eventually. But that's not the only concern. There's also the fact that nuclear rods on some of the submarines could implode underwater. The implosion would create a chain reaction resembling the nuclear blast of Hiroshima or Nagasaki. What's truly frightening is that Russia has known about the problem for a long time. In 1993, there was a report from President Boris Yeltsin that classified the situation as critical. But according to Russia now, there is no high-level radioactive waste that's being dumped into the oceans. They might not be dumping any right now, but the submarines and reactors are still there. One of the submarines is the K-159, lying with its reactors unsealed and totally open to the elements. Experts believe that K-159 is already spreading nuclear radioactivity into the water. There was a plan to lift the vehicles from the bottom of the ocean at one point, but with the war in Ukraine, all these plans have halted. Russia also withdrew from the Russian-Norwegian Nuclear Safety Commission and reportedly refuses to say where the radioactive waste is located. Number 3. Creepy underwater caves. Ocean researchers recently completed a mission to a previously unknown cavern that's located at a depth of 8,200 feet deep. It was a voyage that lasted 30 days, taking the research ship Falcor to the East Pacific Rise, a part of the ocean near Central America. Then, using an underwater robot, the science team dug through pieces of volcanic crust until they unearthed a previously sealed cave system. The goal was to research hydrothermal vents, undersea volcanic vents that emit incredibly hot water. The hot water is generated by heat that originates deep in the earth, making for unique marine ecosystems. Scientists have known about hydrothermal vents for a long time, but it was something altogether new to find subterranean caverns bursting with life. The water within the cave is around 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists spotted tube worms, which they collected with their robot and brought back to the surface. They also found a lot of weird fish colonies within the cave system. It's unclear how deep the mysterious cavern goes beneath the earth. There could be all kinds of crazy monsters living in tunnels of hot water under the bottom of the ocean. Scientists with the Schmidt Ocean Institute believe that studying the hidden ecosystem is extremely important. It's already been proven that marine invertebrates produce way more useful substances than terrestrial organisms, substances that have antibiotic properties, things that can be used to potentially treat cancer and other human illnesses. This means that studying the weird cave creatures at the bottom of the sea could lead to huge medical advancements. Number 2. Time traveler prediction. Time travelers are all over TikTok these days, announcing dates for apocalyptic events in the near future. One of these time travelers goes by @TimeTravelExplorer on the platform. They claim to be from the year 2198, and according to their most recent prediction, scientists are going to make a baffling discovery in the ocean in 2044. 21 years from now, scientists are supposedly going to discover a place the time traveler described as the ocean deeper. This is going to be an even deeper part of the ocean that nobody knows exists today. Then, 3 years later, the time traveler claims that scientists will discover an animal previously thought to be a myth, and by 2054, the mythical creature will be exterminated. The self-proclaimed time traveler didn't give any details about what kind of monster will be discovered in the deep ocean. All they said is that the discovery will shock the world. Do you think there's any truth to the predictions being made by TikTok time travelers? And is there really an enormous sea monster that won't be found for another 20 years? Let me know what you think in the comments. Number 1. The demon shark. While TikTok waits for the potential discovery of a mythical beast, scientists will entertain themselves by discovering real species. Off the coast of Australia, scientists identified a new species of demon shark. It's a real-life marine demon with pale white eyes and a long, slender body. Scientists have named the animal Apresturus ovicorrugatus. They say it's a unique shark because it lays eggs instead of giving birth to live baby sharks. The creature is pale, and its spooky white eyes are extremely unusual for deep water fish. The shark is really freaking out Australian scientists, and they've seen a lot. I mean, they are in Australia. Research technician Helen O'Neill thinks the demon shark's white eyes are used to help it navigate the dark waters of the deep sea. Bright white eyes likely allow the shark to easily spot prey. This particular specimen might be exceptionally creepy, but it's hardly the only demon shark to exist in the ocean. The Apresturus genus is the second most diverse group of sharks in the world. In fact, there are about 40 individual species of demon shark, and most of them are bottom feeders who scavenge the floor of the ocean. And out of those 40, only 2 species have white eyes. Although the discovery was made in the ocean, researchers didn't find a physical shark. Instead, they found its egg casings attached to a branch of coral. The demon shark is so elusive that they pieced together its biology by studying its eggs. Thanks for watching! Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. A 2,700-year-old vessel. About a mile off the coast of Gozo Island in the Maltese archipelago, divers discovered the remains of an ancient shipwreck. This Phoenician vessel was discovered under 400 feet of water. Thanks to the sandy seabed in this part of the Mediterranean, the 50-foot-long ship was very well preserved for being down there almost 3,000 years. It dates as far back as 700 BC and includes items such as 50 ceramic double-handled wine containers called amphorae, as well as 20 80-pound lava-grinding stones. As a maritime people who flourished from 1550 BC to 300 BC, the Phoenicians were master shipbuilders and merchants who sold their wares along ancient trade routes. They met their end after 2 separate conquests by the Persians and then the Greeks. Since this all happened so long ago, it has been tough to learn much about them. These mysterious Phoenician merchants were able to travel all over the Mediterranean with precious goods, an early form of globalization. The vessel, which was likely sailing between Sicily and Malta when it sank, is quite possibly the oldest ever shipwreck discovered in the Mediterranean Sea. Underwater Stonehenge. In 2007, archaeologists discovered a seemingly prehistoric arrangement of rocks while scanning the waters of Lake Michigan. Included among the bizarre series of stones is a boulder with what looked like a prehistoric mastodon carving and a Stonehenge-like formation of rocks. The eerie site is located in the lake's Grand Traverse Bay under 40 feet of water. If the mastodon carving is in fact real, it would date back roughly 10,000 years, to a time when humans and mastodons coexisted in North America. Underwater archaeologist Dr. Mark Hawley of Northwestern Michigan College led the expedition that made the remarkable discoveries, which have received quite a bit of press over the years. He's since taken to the internet to dispel popular myths about the site that the media has perpetuated. Dr. Hawley points out that the idea of the rock formation as an underwater Stonehenge is misguided, as the stones aren't nearly as large as those that make up the actual Stonehenge in England, and do not constitute a megalithic structure. He wrote that the site in Grand Traverse Bay is best described as a long line of stones which is over a mile in length. Research into the formation and the accompanying boulder with the suspected mastodon carving is ongoing. Hawley points out on his website that Dr. John O'Shea of the University of Michigan is investigating a broadly similar structure in Lake Huron, which he suspects may be a prehistoric driveline for herding caribou. Underwater forest. A study published last year details how a team of researchers led by Sarah Feekins from the University of Southern California, Los Angeles, discovered the remains of ancient forests in the deep sea, thousands of miles from their places of origin. The discovery came in the form of 19-million-year-old wood samples from sediment layers at the bottom of the Bay of Bengal, over 2 miles under the water's surface and a half-mile beneath the sea floor. While much of the wood comes from tree species that grew on lowlands, one sediment layer contained remnants of trees that grew about 2 miles above sea level in the Himalayan mountains. The study argues that the trees were swept from their original location by a large release of water, such as a dam caused by a landslide or a glacier, and traveled thousands of miles along a surge of water caused by cyclones, monsoons, and floods, before ultimately being deposited into the Bengal Fan, the world's largest sedimentary outflow. Because the trees quickly became buried after being uprooted, they did not decay. The discovery will potentially help researchers better understand the carbon cycle and the amount of locked carbon the Earth contains, which is a necessary component of understanding climate change. And now for a deep sea surprise, but first, it's shout-out time! Big thank you to Joel Chan and Wolfie Games YT for their nice comments! If you are new here, be sure to subscribe and click that bell for more videos like these. Garbage. In March 2019, explorer, entrepreneur, and retired naval officer Victor Vescovo descended 35,853 feet to the deepest part of the world, the Challenger Deep at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Until then, the deepest ever descent had occurred in 1960. Vescovo exceeded it by 52 feet. Once he reached the bottom, he spent 4 hours exploring. It's the longest anyone has ever spent in the Mariana Trench. Besides noticing several previously undiscovered species, including sea cucumber-like creatures and shrimp-like arthropods, Vescovo insisted he felt a current near the bottom of the trench, something scientists had warned him was impossible. Nevertheless, he was sure of what he observed. Even more shockingly, he discovered man-made garbage covered in silt nearly 7 miles beneath the ocean's surface. Included among these items were plastic or metal objects, one of which had writing on it. It was very disappointing to see obvious human contamination of the deepest point in the ocean, Vescovo said in an interview following the expedition. With plastic filling the world's waterways at unprecedented rates and epidemic proportions to the tune of over 100 million tons to date, his concern is certainly valid. We should all be worried. Vescovo hopes the discovery of rubbish so deep in the ocean will raise awareness about the dangers of dumping garbage and will influence governments to create new regulations revolving around the practice or regulate existing ones. Airplane graveyard. The Marshall Islands played a major role in the World War II Pacific theater. Off the archipelago's Kwajalein Atoll lies a submerged collection of military equipment from the era, which the locals simply refer to as the airplane graveyard. During the war, the U.S. military bombarded the atoll in an effort to seize it from the Japanese. As a result, various military vehicles, including ships, planes, and other equipment, ended up on the ocean floor. In addition to the vehicles lost to fighting, once the war was over, the U.S. military decided it didn't need most of the equipment it had transported to the atoll and sunk many vehicles into the lagoon and offshore. While it might not make much sense to simply dump expensive military machines into the ocean, the decision to do so was cost-saving because it actually spared the military from the expenses of hauling the equipment 5,000 miles back to the United States. Over 100 airplanes were pushed off the back of a ship into the lagoon, where they remain today over a several square mile area in 100 to 130 feet of water. The planes in this particular area were not damaged in the war, although they probably saw action. They were perfectly good pieces of machinery that the military simply disposed of when they were done using them, and over 70 years later, they remain mostly intact. Consequently, the site is a popular diving attraction. A bizarre Antarctic blob. Late last year, an international team of scientists announced the discovery of a never-before-seen, bizarre blob-like creature deep in Antarctic waters. Earlier in 2019, they had taken a 50-day expedition across the Southern Ocean on the New Zealand research vessel Tongaroa. Using sophisticated technology to scan the sea floor, they captured images unlike anything researchers had ever seen. The team's fascinating finds were revealed in a YouTube documentary called The Secrets of Antarctica. As part of their mission, they dove nearly 11,500 feet below the ice to see what was at the bottom. While down there, one of their most fascinating discoveries was the previously unseen sea life. Wanting to catch more than a mere glimpse at these species, the scientists decided to drag a net along the sea floor. 6 hours later, they hauled their catch aboard. To the team's amazement, they collected 12 buckets of mud, 1 fish, and an indescribably strange, translucent, gelatinous creature. The unknown specimen is the first scientists have ever seen, and they are yet unsure what it is, how many exist, or much other information about them. Nevertheless, the researchers are stunned. The animal's identification is pending. "This is why I came to Antarctica, to see things like this," said Dr. Andrew Stewart, one of the expedition's leading scientists, who was stunned by the find. "I have to look at such features as the shape of the teeth, the jaws, the shape of the gill rakers, as well as counts of the vertebrae to determine what it is." A military tank. At the bottom of Truk Lagoon in Micronesia, under 160 feet of water, lies the Nipo Maru shipwreck, which contains numerous exciting items, including a military tank. The 354-foot-long Nipo Maru passenger cargo ship was built in Kobe, Japan in 1936. It was used as a merchant vessel until 1941, when the Japanese Navy acquired it for transporting water tanks, military supplies, and ammunition to the mandated islands. On February 17, 1944, at the height of World War II, the U.S. Navy and Air Force attacked the Japanese Navy at Truk Lagoon in what became known as Operation Hailstone. The USS Essex hit the Nipo Maru with a trio of 500-pound bombs, causing heavy damage and fires. Within 2 hours, the ship was completely submerged. To this day, the Nipo Maru remains where she sank, along with all her contents. Pioneering wreck diver Klaus Lindemann discovered it in 1980. It's considered one of the world's most beautiful shipwrecks and is nicknamed the $1 Million Wreck. On the port side of the ship, there is a military tank. There are also gas masks, shoes, water tanks, rifle ammunition, mess kits, and even beer bottles, acting as an eerie testament to the destruction caused during the Second World War. Trucks. On June 7, 1980, a roll-on, roll-off ferry called the Zenobia sank to the bottom of Larnaca Bay, Cyprus, under what many people argue were mysterious circumstances. The disaster happened during the ship's maiden voyage from Malmo to Syria. During the trip, a computer malfunction allegedly caused excess water to load into one of the ballast tanks, and the ship began listing. Believing they had the problem under control, the ship's crew carried onward toward Cyprus. The Zenobia began listing again in Larnaca Harbor and was required to leave in case it sank, to avoid having it become a hazard to other vessels. The listing only became worse from there once the ship was anchored offshore, so the captain evacuated it and it sank in the early hours of the morning. According to witnesses, crew members were strangely calm as they watched the Zenobia go down from a harborside bar. Even more strangely, no investigation was ever carried out, despite hundreds of millions of dollars worth of goods going down with the vessel. There were over 100 trucks loaded with cargo aboard the ferry, and they all traveled to the bottom of the harbor when it sank. Today, they remain scattered at the site, underneath between 50 and 140 feet of water. The wreck is a popular scuba diving site, but can also be observed by snorkeling at the surface or from a glass-bottomed boat. Whatever you prefer. A UFO? In 2011, explorers discovered an oddly shaped item that came to be known as the Baltic Sea Anomaly. Using sonar, they detected the 210-foot-long object underneath 300 feet of water. Nobody knew what it was, and theories took off like wildfire, with some people speculating that the mystery item was part of a fleet of crashed UFOs. Its steel gray exterior even caused some of the more extreme conspiracy theorists to point out that the suspected UFO resembles the Star Wars Millennium Falcon. OceanX team member Stefan Hogerborn even claimed that the crew's electrical equipment stopped working on the seabed within 656 feet of the anomaly. Meanwhile, another theory suggested that the anomaly constituted some remains of a long-lost submerged city. The mystery was finally solved earlier this year when a group of divers collected samples of the object and handed them over to scientists from Stockholm University, who determined that the anomaly is nothing more than a glacial deposit. This makes sense since moving glaciers carved out a large portion of the Baltic Sea during the Ice Age. Much to the disappointment of conspiracy theorists, and I think everyone, Volker Bruckert, associate professor of geology at Stockholm University, weighed in on the findings, stating that because the whole northern Baltic region is so heavily influenced by glacial thawing processes, both the feature and the rock samples are likely to have formed in connection with glacial and post-glacial processes. Possibly these rocks were transported there by glaciers. Perhaps the Baltic Sea anomaly is not so much of an anomaly after all. We'll have to go check it out one day for ourselves. Thanks for watching! Which discovery would you like to see in person? Have you ever been diving and seen any of these graveyards? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. See you next time. Bye!